Hello, everyone. Welcome to Wednesday, Transformation Wednesday, here at your Facebook community, Transformation through Acquisition Driven Instruction. My name is Berta Delgadillo, for those of you who are brand new to this community, and I just want to welcome you. And I thank you for being here and joining me here today, because we're going to have an honest conversation about engaging your students virtually, even when their cameras are not on. Before we get to that, I just want to introduce myself like I always do at the beginning, because many people are often new to our community. Every week we get new members. Again, I am Berta Delgadillo, and I am a high school teacher in Savannah, Georgia, and I created this community so that we could support each other as educators, but also because I am super committed to making sure that we have opportunities to have access to professional development, regardless of where we are, whether our school supports trying to get those professional learning opportunities or not. You have a space that you can come to every Wednesday, and you can come and take something and use it in your classroom. And we have covered all types of topics, and I will drop a link later on that tells you how to access all the presentations we have ever hosted inside this community. So if you want to look at those, you have access to that. So today I have my friend from my county, Rebecca Hine, and she is an incredible educator. I know Rebecca for, since I started teaching, so maybe like 7 years ago, we met initially. And I know that she has her PhD currently. She has her beautiful baby with her. I told her, bring him on, because I need to have you in my group. And Wednesday was a little bit of a challenge for her. So we have her baby, and he is here. And so if you hear that cuteness, just say hi. And so I have her with me, and I'm going to allow her to introduce herself and tell us, all about her, and where does she teach, what type of school she teaches at, and all of that information. Rebecca.
Hi, I'm Rebecca Hine, and my son is with me. He's almost 2, so we'll see how he does. I've been teaching for nearly 9 years. I've taught at several schools, but I am very committed to the one that I'm at now. I've been there for, I think, almost 3-4 years, and it's a historically African-American school that was founded for specifically freed slaves. So my demographic is unique, and I love it. And teaching Spanish, living the dream, getting advanced degrees is the boring stuff. But most of all, I just love my students.
And that's what we do. I was telling a group of teachers today in my school, we are not just teachers. Okay, we teach from the heart. We are not just teachers. We are life changers. We give life to dreams that have been dead sometimes inside our students. We really don't realize the impact we have as educators. And that impact is so great, face to face, but even virtually, we can still build that connection. And I am a firm believer that we can still build super strong relationships with our students. So I was telling Rebecca, I teach, as you know, I teach at a high school. I teach, I teach Spanish 2 and Spanish 3. And I have my classes. My biggest class has 28 students. So I know that in average, because I was listening to a teacher from Nevada who was talking about she had 40 students in her class. And I know that those classes do exist. So I know that I'm probably on the average 28 students per class. I don't know how many students you serve, Rebecca, at your school per class.
Well, we have 3 Spanish teachers and 1 Latin teacher, so our class sizes are actually able to be fairly small. So I would say the largest size is probably 28, unless it was a year where scheduling was funny, then I might have 35.
Okay.
But last year, my average was about 16 to 20, which was really nice.
Yeah. So definitely. So maybe about, in the 20s or so. I'm just wondering, the people who are listening to us right now, our audience, what is their largest class size? Just out of curiosity. So that's kind of where we're at. My school, for example, students have to, it's a specialty school, it's a career and tech school, but that doesn't mean that we don't have challenges. We have a lot of challenges, believe me. We still have to motivate our students to show up. We still, even when we were face to face, we still had to do a lot to really engage them. And we want to talk to you tonight about, are you there? Just, are you there? Because many times it feels like, oh, like Joshua, like, are you there? Are you listening? Of course, we say that in Spanish or in French or whatever language we teach. And sometimes that does happen. But I have realized many things over the last couple of weeks. I know that my perspective has shifted since like March when I started doing this. When we started teaching online on March, I wanted to see all of my students and I wanted to connect with them. And, at the beginning, it was kind of working because they still were getting grades for their assignments. And then the last quarter of our school, it was decided that it was optional. So not many students were showing, and I don't blame them. I mean, Rebecca, if somebody told you we're going to pay you no matter what, whether you show up for class or not, that's a no-brainer, as much as we love our students, right? So, yeah. So I absolutely don't blame them. And I'm looking at the responses. We have people who said they have 27 in a class, 8 in a class, 30 in a class. Okay, so we have 26 is the largest, but a total of 114. So absolutely, that's a lot of classes. And then 24, 29 to 31 is not unheard of. Heidi's saying that her largest is 32. So that's a lot of students to have to connect with and to have to keep track of. So several things that we want to bring out tonight is, in our school, in our district, at least in our district, because Rebecca and I work in the same district, we are not to force our students to have their cameras on. That is not something that they're doing. They told us initially, you do not force the students to have their cameras on. You're welcome to encourage it. So pretty much every teacher can do whatever he or she wants as far as that is concerned. And I know that in my school, there are at least 2 teachers that I am aware of, that I know, who it is part of the grade of the students to have their cameras on, or else. And I know that the students do show up for those teachers. Okay, so at the beginning, when I heard of that, and I knew one teacher was very adamant about it, and she said, I'm going to make it a grade, I'm going to make it a grade. I didn't tell her anything, but in my mind, I'm like, I just don't feel comfortable doing that. What about you, Rebecca? What does that sound like in your school? I know that, we have the same policy, we're not to force people. What are teachers doing? What are you doing?
So for me, I am not forcing cameras to be on. I couldn't imagine doing that because I have students who I know are looking after younger siblings. I know I have family members who are out of work. I know I have family members who are waiting on surgeries. I know I have children who are moving in between houses. And I know that I have children who go back and forth from house to house. And maybe mom's house isn't so great. Maybe dad's house is. There's internet issues. And besides, we're just teenagers. Like, I couldn't imagine being forced to put on my screen when I'm in the middle of my proactive acne treatment. So I don't force them to put on their screens, but they do have to check in some way. They have to message me. They have to record videos on their own time for certain assignments. So I might not force them to have the screen on, but we do interact. There's always something happening between us that day.
Absolutely, and I totally agree with that. At first, like I said, in March, whether my students showed up their face or not, I was beginning to take it personal, and I realized I was wrong for doing that. That I should not take it personal. Oh, they're not showing up for me, and I had built this wonderful relationship with them, and they're still not showing me their face. Why are they doing me like that? It was about me and Ms. Delgadillo. And I was just taking it very personal. And I wasn't aware of all the reasons why students don't want to show their faces. And we want to, I know many of you who are listening to us tonight are probably and have seen on social media many of the reasons why students do not choose to show their faces. And we just kind of want to highlight some of those reasons because I think it is important that many of our students are just, it's not about us. it shouldn't be like I was taking it personal. It should not be about, oh, it doesn't make you a bad teacher if the students are not showing their faces. So
I
if you're
do make a joke though. I want to interject. I tell them, I'm like, look, if I put my makeup on, y'all are at least going to respond in the chat box. So I'm always giving humor, reminding them it's not about me, but remember, I'm here too. I'm making the effort.
And I also tell them, from time to time, I said, I feed off your energy. So my few students in a class of 28, in a class, I have maybe 5 who are showing their camera. And then in another class, maybe I have like 13. So it varies. And then some days I have more, some days I have less. It depends really on them. But I kind of want us to talk about the reasons why students do not choose to show their face in the classroom, or do not choose to turn on their camera. So Rebecca, and I have had these conversations before, so I want her to kind of like tell us what your experience has been, and I'll talk a little bit about my experience. So why are some of the reasons why your students are not choosing to show their cameras, Rebecca?
Honestly, like I grew up with a really loud sister, right? As there's siblings in the house. That's the number one reason is like, I'll hear my students be like, you are so sickening. I am on my class right now. If they are asking me a question. And so like, it's not even something so tragic that the camera's not on. It's simply like, y'all have to remember, we're in a house with people, we're in a family environment. And that's the top one. It's noisy, it's busy. And if everybody's on quarantine, everybody's home, so mama's cooking in the kitchen, or they're talking about the news, or like there's noise in the background. And to me, that's a good sign. That's showing me that, hey, there's a family there, we're involved, we're here with the child, we're learning. So that's the number one reason. And then the other reasons are more serious, where the internet connectivity isn't good. And even the hotspot that the school provided is still not good enough. And then we still have to remember, like, people are going through financial hardships. We're really fortunate as teachers that we are employed, even though there's a lot going on with our profession. And I just feel like you can't force someone just because your schedule is normal for right now. I'll stop there and let you go ahead.
Well, I want to say that the other day I posted on my Instagram a little reel video, a little short video, just kind of like not making fun, but putting light on how teachers feel when students don't show up. And I had a little sad song in the background. And many of my students follow my teacher account on Instagram. And surprisingly, I made that video for the teachers who follow me, who would connect. Surprisingly, I had a lot of students who send me private messages telling me reasons why they don't show their face. So I guess they felt bad for my video and they sent me private messages. And one of my students said, I don't show my face. It's not because of you. It's just that I have my insecurities. Another student said, sometimes I'm half asleep in classes and I try to keep my face on camera because I like my teachers, but if they don't make me, I won't. And then she said, don't worry, señora, it is mostly out of students being tired or shy. It is not about you. So that's what and these were unsolicited comments that my students just decide to write to me after they saw that video. And then one last one that a student of mine said, he said, I would, but my little sister is crazy and I don't want everybody to see that. And then in a survey, I'm actually conducted a survey at the beginning of the school year where I asked my students, and I asked many of them, will you be willing to show your face in the meeting? Why or why not? Out of all of my students, I have about 87 students. Out of all of them, 50% said in the survey that they won't show their face because they may not be looking great. And that sounds like a very vain reason, but at the same time, let's take it back, people, when we were teenagers and how the world would fall apart if we were not looking good when we showed up to that high school. Some of us didn't care, but some of us did. So same for our students. So 50% of them in my survey, and that was like a big sample, said that on a given day, they may not turn on their camera because they're not looking great. And if you think about first period, that starts at 8 o'clock in the morning.
I want to add that there's a lot of teenage workers now. If you go to the grocery store, if you're getting fast food for dinner that night, the world is being manned by teenagers. They're the ones working. And I know this. And so, yeah, you're right. That's a great point. They're really tired in the morning already from growing.
Absolutely. And then they said 35% of them said they have siblings and family around them. So you totally nailed that, Rebecca. And that's what my other students said. But 35% of my students who took the survey said that. And 23% of them said that they're not proud of their home backgrounds. So that brings us to another point that Rebecca and I were talking about many times, and something that we need to realize is that it is not about us if they're not showing their face. And I know this is like the third time I said that, but I just want to really, if you, like I said, if you're feeling guilty, if you're feeling like you're not good enough because you can't get your students to show their face, let me remind you, it is not about you. It is about other reasons. And something that I saw on Instagram the other day, and it was the Still teacher, Still. She has an account, and she's about like mindset and students. And she said that it is important for us to remember that when we ask students to turn on their cameras, we are inviting the entire class into their home. And I paused because that's pretty powerful stuff. And then if students are uncomfortable, we should not force them. Many students don't have a space they're proud of, which is what 23% of my students agreed on, and can be embarrassed by their living environment. So we should allow them to have a choice, and we can give them other options. So we want to talk about solutions. We talked about the why, and we want to tell you, don't take it personal. Don't beat yourself up over it. But definitely we wanna give you some practical solutions. But anything else you want to add? Well, Rebecca and the baby, but yeah, so that's kind of like where it stands with why our students are not showing their faces. And I just kind of want to take you to look into possible ways to get them to engage. So I want to share with you that I have learned through my week 6. I am going into week 6 next week of teaching students. And what I have learned is that they can be engaged even if they are not online. So the easiest way for me, the first tip that I have for you to make sure that the students are engaged and foster that engagement and foster those relationships is precisely through that, through build those relationships with those students as best as you can. So several ways that, and we have talked a lot about this inside this community, inside my friends Claudia's Growing with CI community. We love to talk about building relationships with students because that is key to the work that we do. So in a way, I mean, there's so many ways to build relationships. And like I was saying earlier, I conducted a survey at the beginning of the year that I've shared inside this Facebook community. And if you don't have access to that survey, you haven't conducted a survey, and you want a copy of the survey, I will be more than happy to share that with you. Just write it on the message and I'll respond to it later, and I'll give you access to a copy of this survey. This is for high school students, but it can be modified for middle school students. And in the survey, I asked them a lot of questions. It is a long survey, and I gave them a grade for it because that information is gold to me and to what I'm going to do for the rest of the year, and how when I have an issue with a student, I can intervene strategically through the information I have on this survey. And I asked them so many questions. One of those questions, as Rebecca mentioned earlier, was, do you have a job after school? And I found out that 36% of my students have a job after school. And I know exactly which ones those are. And I have one student who responded yes, and he sends me messages maybe once or twice a week saying he has a long shift and he needs the class recording. And I know he's not lying because he told me this at the beginning through the survey. And so just things of that nature, building those relationships with the students. You can build the relationships by getting to know them quickly. And one way you can get to know them quickly is through those surveys and through actually looking through each individual response and making some type of connection with those students and making sure you mention those connections throughout the days in class. So if you
add to that, in the beginning of each lesson, I try to make sure I ask them a personal question. So I do the social emotional check-in as well, like, how are you doing today? Mm-hmm. But then I also might ask them, would you rather be poor but good looking, or would you rather be would you rather be rich and ugly? And then immediately they have an opinion. Immediately they want to say which one they would rather be. And so there's a lot of ways, small ways, that you can get them engaged.
Absolutely. You can ask those questions, which is kind of like this or that, those options. Get a lot of conversation going, and also through their social emotional learning check-ins. The really, really simple ones. I have shared some social emotional learning check-ins with my email list. So if you want to have access to those social emotional learning check-ins, also type in on the messages, and I will make sure you get that link so that you can get access to those ready to go social emotional learning check-ins, so that you can generate that connection with the students. And actually, talking about that, I survey my students, because I survey them a lot throughout the school. I mean, we're on week 6, and I have given them like 3 different surveys to get feedback on different things. And one of those surveys was about the check-ins at the beginning of the class. I asked my students, and I said, do you like to have check-ins in the morning? I don't call them social emotional learning check-ins. I said just check-ins, you know. So my students, this is from the words of my students. They said, I like that we can engage with each other and not automatically jump into class. They said, it makes me feel cared for by you. We're able to express how we feel. We feel more connected. I like that you care about our well-being and want to make sure students are okay. It gives us a moment to relieve ourselves and give teachers ideas about how we're feeling. Teachers can know how their students are, and it also makes us as students feel cared for since someone is asking how we are. And then finally, after sitting in front of the computer all day, it gets a little boring, so we can say how we feel. It's nice. It's a nice feeling to know you care. So the key word right here is showing them that we care. And when you show them that you care, that is an open door that invites them, that you know, they're going to open for you, so that you can continue to build those relationships. And I was listening the other day to Rita Pearson, who said kids don't learn from people they don't like. And it's not about us making them like us, but it's just us showing them that we genuinely care for them. So we have a couple of questions. So we have, please send the SEL link and your survey. Yes, I will make sure I link them up after the live. I'll respond to this comment. Patrice is saying she would love the check-ins also. Okay, all right, so I'll make sure I share that. Latoya is asking, are your check-ins in Spanish or do you do this part in English? I do them in Spanish, actually. It's very, very simple the way I might conduct them. So some of the check-ins, let me see if I can find one. Like today, I wanted it to be more like an informal conversation, so I did not put together a presentation for you guys. But in the check-ins, I pretty much give the students all the language they need to be able to engage in class. So that way, I'm just facilitating the little conversation. So a check-in would be something as like a little thermometer and different pictures saying, on a scale of 1 through 10, how great are you feeling? And they have to tell me, you know, what it is. And then I just kind of like, I do narration of what the students are saying. They write it on the chat as they come in. And then if I notice that I have specific students who are not participating, then I just said, oh, I need to hear from X person. I need to hear from Y person. And I need to hear from Z person. They're not participating, but the fact that I call their names and, you know, they need to respond on the chat. Usually the check-ins we do on the chat. And the fact that I noticed that, you know, Larry's name was not on the chat, the fact that I noticed that Destiny was not sharing, you know, that kind of like sends them a message. Oh, she noticed that I'm not engaging. She notices. Early on, I'm making it a point that, hey, I know you're not here, or you're not here yet. I need you to get with me. And the thing about the social emotional learning check-ins is that they're so easy to do. They really only have to give me a number or an adjective or just whatever language I give them to produce. And then the other thing about it is that I make it a point from the beginning. I told my students, you can share the message to everyone on the chat because I am 100% virtual and so is Rebecca. So I told my students, you can share anytime, any day, you can share your response to the chat to everyone, or you can just share it to me only. So I am very careful when I'm reading the responses out loud. If a child told me that he's at a 1 because he feels crappy that day, and he told me that privately, I'm not going to say, oh, Jonathan says he's a 0 today, because, that will be a big mistake on my behalf. But go ahead, Rick.
If I can interject, I want to add that admitting when the room is on fire is important, though. So when you're encouraging a student and saying, you can do this, in the back of their mind is like, but you have 18 assignments I need to do, and so does this teacher and this teacher. And I was talking to a student today, and I said, this sucks, doesn't it? It's really hard. You have to do all of this stuff and keep it all organized. But guess what? I made this Google form for you to stay organized. I'm emailing your other teachers right now. And don't forget to be kind. Don't forget to talk to yourself in the mirror and say, I can do this. Let's say the student's name is Brianna. I can do this, Brianna. Even if I don't get it done today, I'll get it done by Monday. And I could tell, like, she was like, whew, and all of the stress went away, and she actually started working with more vigor.
And that is also social emotional learning, okay? Just managing their emotions, helping them see that it's not the end of the world. Oh, you owe me 4 assignments? Break them down, baby. Do one Thursday, one Friday, one on Monday, and one on Tuesday. And if you need me after school, I am here. It's not the end of the world. Like, it's gonna take you 15 minutes. In their head, they're like, oh, I owe her 4 assignments. That's going to take me 5 hours. No. Like, sometimes they need us to redirect. And that in itself is social emotional learning, helping them to do time management. So here's an example of a little check-in. And this is the collection of check-ins that I created. These were not my ideas, okay? I saw it. I don't even remember who had shared it. And then I know Senora Chase did some similar like this. And then I created some of my own. I did not create the pictures. Those I got from Google. So it's really easy. So for those of you who are listening to me who are French teachers, honestly, you can get my templates, and then you can put a white text box, and then you can type over it in French, and then you can change all of this because this is editable. So you can make it all in French. So basically, when my students come in, they already know on a scale of chihuahuas, how are you feeling today? So, I mean, look at these pictures. We're like smiling, and even if we're not doing so great, we are just like all smiles. And I would say things like, oh, Kalea es un número 6. Kalea está enojada. Or, oh, la clase tiene sueño. La clase tiene sueño. Son un número 5. Tiene sueño. They know tiene sueño. Because, like, that's what I say. Most of the classes are always sleepy at the beginning. And, or like they're tired or they're upset or they're happy. Just kind of like mention the feelings in Spanish. And, that's all you have to say. And if you do not know their names, I make my students, they have to sign, in order for them to be sign in to Zoom, they have to use their names. Because if I don't recognize a name, I'm not letting them in. I'm not taking chances that it's some kind of Zoom bomber or anything like that. And I know that if you use Teams, they are already automatically signing with their names. So if they give you a response, you can just look at their name so that you can call their names, because it is key and it is imperative that we use their names, even if we do not know who they are. Say their names. Say their names. And if you notice a child is in your class and isn't participating, say their name. And you don't have to like call them out like, oh, such person isn't participating. Don't phrase. It's all about how you phrase it. Because when my students are telling me and checking in with me, they are saying things like, I keep saying, oh, like Prachi, she says, she's number 4. Oh, I need to hear from. I don't say I haven't heard from, or I don't say, oh, these people who are not participating, I need everybody to participate. No. I just say, I need to hear from. I still need to hear from, and I still need to hear from X, Y, and Z. And then that way, the students realize that, oh, that's me. Or sometimes I say, oh, I'm still waiting to hear from 5 students. And that way they know. Or I would look at my number on Zoom, and if it says I have 27 participants minus 1, so that's 26. Like if we're going on a Pear Deck or on a Nearpod adventure that day, I would say, okay, I need to have 26 students and I have 23. I'm waiting on 3 more. I say this in Spanish. They understand this. So I said, okay, I necesito 3 más, 3 estudiantes. ¿Quiénes son los 3 estudiantes? And if it's taking long, I show them, I send them private messages and I said, hey, I'm waiting on you. Is everything okay? Is your connection okay? What's going on? What's holding you up? And they already know that if they can't sign on to something, it is okay. They just have to let me know before time, not after the assignment. Because after the assignment, it's too late for them to tell me. Because then, I cannot really believe them after the assignment. They know that if they're having issues connecting, they have to let me know that at the beginning. Okay? So
and I want to add that with the connection issues for some of my students, a lot of mine will drop out of the call. And so everything that I do, I always make it have an independent link. And I just assure them, I'm like, you can do this on your own. Absolutely. If you're really having a scheduling issue, but just know that you're not going to receive my help. And normally with me teaching novice learners, that's enough to get them on the line that they don't want to do it on their own.
Yeah, and I think that's great. And that's a fabulous feature that if you use Nearpod or if you use Pear Deck, they have self-paced lessons, and it's really easy to make it a self-paced lesson. And I think that is a great key point, Rebecca, to tell them. And that is something that, I kind of send the same message. I just say it to them a little bit different. Early on the year, it's teaching is like a salesperson's job. We got to sell these classes, okay? We have got to sell these classes. So the way that I sold it to my students at the beginning, I said, you show up for class, you won't have to do any work after school for my class. We're going to take care of everything right here. And Wednesday, we have virtual day where the students are signed on and the teachers leave them assignments. And it's a day that you can check in with students individually if they need help and whatnot. And on that day, I give them assignments that are going to take them anywhere from 20 to not more than 50 minutes. I don't want to give them anything that's going to take them longer than the hour they're normally to spend with me. So that's my policy, because I mean, as a teacher, think about it. How do we feel being in front of the screen? And then I know my students, some of my students are taking college classes, and you know what? I mean, college classes, those are college classes. So I don't feel necessarily bad that they have so much work in their college classes, because that's just preparing them for college life. But, there are some high school classes that I know they're getting a ton of work. And the other day, I did this other social emotional learning check-in, this one right here. And I asked them, what fills you up and what drains you? And I gave them all this language, and I told them right on the chat, I told them what llena meant, what drena meant, and I did, some example sentences with that, and I said, me llena cuando veo a mis estudiantes en Zoom, like I get super happy, I get super fulfilled when I see my students in Zoom. And then, I am drained by, and I said, I am drained by too much computer time. So this is a little check that I did. And for me, it was so sad to hear, when they were talking about que te llena, what fills them up, they say my family, God, my cat, my dog, and when nobody said school, okay? But when it came to what drains you, I had maybe like over 50% of my kids say escuela, la escuela, or la clase de ciencias, or, something specific. And yes, we have some questions in here. It says, do you have any Pear Deck samples? Pear Deck already has SEL templates. So that is very true. If you use Pear Deck, they already have several different models, but you can create your own as well and use those. So that's a great point. So we have...
Sorry, if I could point out your emojis also that you use. Like I know we had a question earlier about, do you do these things in the target language? I find that if you train yourself to become literate in emojis, you can teach them anything. You can put nearly any new vocabulary word up there and they'll figure it out. I didn't have any English translations when I taught them vocabulary. I just had emojis. And again, I teach now Spanish 1. And so for our very first virtual lesson, we just talked through it, the process of looking at the emojis with the Spanish and what do you think it means? And they're very bright. It's like hieroglyphics, except they're fluent in it and they figured it out.
Absolutely. I think that's a great point that you bring up, Rebecca. We have a question. I'm going to stop sharing this, but because I just wanted to kind of share with you some of the social emotional learning check-ins that I use with my students that are already made. And like I said, you can edit this to another language if you teach a different language other than Spanish. I am sorry, but it's just one of me, and I teach Spanish, so all of my material is in Spanish. But you can definitely take it and change it to meet your needs. I'm going to stop sharing this one. We have a question. Latoya is asking, how do I show them I care while being firm with kids who do not stay in the virtual class or do not pay attention? So, Rebecca, do you have any advice for that? Yep.
I can answer that. I had a child going through a situation which I didn't know at the time, and he just yelled a bunch of expletives at me. And I just immediately, did what I was supposed to, removed him from the call, tried to follow through. And when I got a hold of somebody in his family, finally, the person I got in touch with let me know the situation was tough. And I was like, you didn't even have to tell me that. And so I found that with that child, even though he knew that he did wrong, he still came to class. He still kept trying to come to class, even though I wasn't supposed to let him in. Eventually I did, of course. And I noticed that his behavior was totally different. So remember that teenagers need new chances. Remember to encourage them. And when I started my message to him today, actually, to reach out to him, I said, hey, so-and-so and I were talking about just how smart you are. I want to know how I can help you get started. And so I really like Bertha's point that you have to remember that it's not about you, and it's really easy to personalize things. And so there's so many ways to show that you care. And my number one way is just by noticing them. And so with this student, I noticed how well he could write an email. Like, this is the same child that cussed me out, but he writes a beautiful email. So right away, I know, hey, I just need to show him that I'm noticing the good things as well as the things that need to be changed, addressing them.
Absolutely. And then another issue, I'm so glad you brought this example, Rebecca. I had one example of a student who just came to my class earlier last week. So not this week, last week. A brand new student who got transferred into our school. And he came into like a class where I have a really, really good atmosphere. And when he signed in, he put his name. And then once he joined, I knew he was coming because I knew he was a new student I was getting. He had a picture of him flipping a bird, okay? And I sent him a message because obviously everybody could see that, but that was his picture on his Zoom. And I sent him a message, very polite. I am so glad you're here. Like, I am so happy to have you here. I know you're a new student, but I want to let you know that your image is inappropriate. Could you please switch it because it is disrespectful to the class and it is disrespectful to me. Just, because he may not know that. He really may not know that. Well, what did he do? Nothing. He did not even respond to me or anything. And you know what? I just kept my cool. I could have kicked him out of the class, but what message was I going to send the kid? And I just thought about, oh my God, the other students are going to see it. And maybe the other students are going to start acting a certain way. But that did not happen because I already had established relationship with those other students. So what I did is I took a picture of, of the screen with this child. And then I just sent it to my principal and I sent it to the mom. And I called the mom in the afternoon and I said, hey, I'm so glad I have your child. Please know that I'm not going to look at him any different, but this happened in class. And she was so, upset about this, not at me, but at her child. She's like, I cannot believe this. I thank you for telling me this. Of course, I'm going to take care of this. And then my principal also later on emailed her, even though he knew I called her. Next day, the child comes back, obviously no picture or anything, and he is engaged in class. And I mentioned the next day to the entire class. I didn't say any names. I just said, class, please know that everything that's happening in class is being recorded. That's the only blanket statement I made. So that if the other students saw that inappropriate behavior, now they knew it was gone. And, they're not dumb. They probably figured out, okay, this was taken care of because this is not something that continues to happen. And now the student, I wouldn't say I have like a firm relationship with him, but he recently emailed me, and he also emailed me in a very polite way. Hi, good afternoon. I was wondering about this, that, and the other. So, I mean, I don't know, maybe he was trying to prove something or not. So you can be firm, but like Rebecca said, every day give them a new chance. It is hard to give them a new chance every day sometimes when they continue to exhibit certain behaviors, but every day it is important to give the students a new chance.
I want to add to that how you said you started off with a positive note. That's so important. I have one child who will message me nonstop until I fix her grades, and I never discourage her. She's excited about the class, so I say thank you so much for your enthusiasm. Thank you for taking initiative. Thank you for communicating with me. I really like how you started this off on your own. So that's one example. And so is she misbehaving? No, but remember that they're being teenagers who have used technology for entertainment purposes. That's all it's been. And so like how you brought up the profile picture, all he knows is the internet is my identity where I show my friends who I am. So this is a totally new venue for everyone.
Absolutely. And I think, this child wasn't in my class when this happened, but my first week when I did my syllabus, which I also share my syllabus with everyone in this community. But in my syllabus, I had a little section about how to email me properly. And because I told them that is one of my biggest pet peeves, that you're just demanding things. But if you demand things, you know what? Because you turn something in late, that is not my fault. I'm just going to get to it whenever I get to it. But if you tell me nicely, guess what's going to happen? Ms. Delgadillo is going to stop doing whatever she's doing because she's going to feel compelled to go take care of it right away. And that's just kind of like the example I give him. So I get a lot of really nice messages. And sometimes I have to remind them, hey, that's not the way you message someone. It's all about how you deliver the message. And they don't know this sometimes. Because like Rebecca said, the language they're used to exchange with each other through text messages is incomplete. It's not correct. And, and I'm not even like talking about grammatically correct here. I'm talking about just like a greeting and know how to ask for things. That's pretty much it, what I'm, asking them to do for me. So some other tips that we have for engagement. So we talked about social emotional learning check-ins. We talked about building relationships with them because nothing can happen without relationships. And that is key now more than ever. The other thing that I kind of mentioned was to cold call. Make your class a culture of cold calling on the students. That means that, you know what, you have a PowerPoint, you're doing a story. Okay, Rebecca, please read the first line. Okay, Mark, please read the second line. Translate this line. Or, if you're doing a biography of a famous Hispanic during Hispanic Heritage Month, which we should be doing those every day, every week. But, if you're just highlighting somebody, you know what? Okay, asking true or false question, fill in the blank question, multiple choice question. I'm calling on Mike. I'm calling on Amir. I'm calling on everybody. Everybody knows, they don't know what time I'm going to call on them, but they know that when I call and they don't respond, there is a consequence after I'm done with class. And no, I'm not going to reach out to them. Okay? So what I say when I call on somebody, the other day I was calling on somebody and I said, X person, are you listening to me? ¿Me escuchas? ¿Me escuchas? ¿Estás ahí? X person? Okay, tomo nota. Note taken. Okay, when I say tomo nota, that means that I'm calling home after the class. They know that. And it is not to be mean. It is a safety concern. Because many times, as we talked about, their students have their parents at home, like Rebecca said. Some of them have their parents at home. Some of them do not have their parents at home. And their parents are counting on the fact that these children are at home logging into their classes. And sometimes they're not. And this happened to one of my math teachers. She called on a child and she did not respond. She called home. And guess what? The mom was like, really? And then come to find out, the child had gone with her boyfriend somewhere. So, they're teenagers. So it is also just like how we would look out for their safety at school in the classroom, we are to look out for their safety if they're not responding. If they're logging in and they're not responding, they might be driving while they're in class on their cell phone. I don't know what it is that they're doing, but if they don't respond, they know that in my class, they're gonna get called on at any minute randomly. I use the wheel of names. If you go to the wheel of names on Google the wheel of names, you can save your classes, and that way you can just like call on people randomly. And I call on them, and they know that they're gonna get called on. And if they don't respond, there is a consequence after school. And many times they don't respond, and then later on, if I say tome nota, at the end of class, they'll be like, oh, you called on me, but blah, blah, blah. Because probably a friend of them texted them and said something to them like, oh, you know what? She called on you. You didn't respond or whatever. And I said, no. I got to talk to your parent. So that is one way that you absolutely can get the students to be engaged, even though they don't have their cameras on. It works wonders. Rebecca.
I want to add too that normally in my classroom, I have a points bank system, and I wanted to set it up virtually, but I haven't had a chance to. But I probably need to roll that out by the end of next week. Is if when we're having live sessions, if I call on you and you answer, you can earn X amount of points. We can put it towards a grade. You can earn a homework pass.
Yes.
So there's positive ways too. It depends on your students. And I know my students really jump for the extra credit because they know that they're going to need that kind of slope to keep them going.
Absolutely. I totally agree with that. I also have been putting something like that on hold, actually. Because like I said, at the beginning, when this whole thing started and my students were not necessarily, showing their camera, and I was already more aware that, it was not about me, that they were not showing their faces. One of my English teacher friends told me, she's like, well, make it gamified, like ask them to give them points for showing their faces. But then I'm like, that is not fair, because many students don't show their cameras because, like we said, they're not proud of their backgrounds, because they have siblings walking around and family walking around. So that would not be fair to reward those students who feel comfortable with their background. So I chose not to do that. However, what Rebecca's saying, yes, you can say 30 points equals a class grade. That means, if you have a 0 at the end of the quarter, guess what? Those 30 points they're gonna be worth money, man. Like, that's just how the students are. They're gonna be worth money. So maybe make it 30 points and or maybe like a higher number. I don't know what would be the right number for something like a grade, or maybe 15 points on a test or an assessment. I don't know, whatever it is you want to make it. But definitely a point system will definitely give wonders. Like, for every time they participate, whether it's on the chat or maybe if they speak up, it's actually 2 points, not 1 point. And then, if they react through the reactions, you can also give them another point. Or when they participate and they're called on, give them a point. So you can definitely have a point system going. And let me tell you what, if you find that one student you absolutely trust, that student can take care of those points for you. The one that usually gets bored, that's like super gifted, that doesn't mind helping the teacher, that probably will be a great class job for that one student. So you don't have to worry about the points so much. But yes, that is absolutely another great strategy to get the students engaged. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for sharing that. But another thing that we want to highlight that maybe doesn't happen when we are face-to-face, but it's happening now, is that we have the opportunity to meet with the students on a one-on-one basis if we want to. And I understand we are all, trust me, today I had 3 presentations going on throughout the day. No time to tend to students' emails, really. I answered 5 of them. But other than that, I really could not connect with my students the way I wanted to today because I had so much going on. But you can take it every week, make it a point to connect with students one-on-one. And that doesn't mean that you're going to be meeting with them for 10 minutes. It could be something as short as 2 minutes. Hey, Joanna, can I see you at 2 o'clock in this Zoom room? And we can talk. And I just want to tell Joanna she's doing an amazing job. I'm so grateful to have her in the class. Like, if she's a great student, praise, praise, praise. If she's a student that fell off the wagon, maybe tell her, hey, I noticed you did great on this period of time, but now you're not doing this. What's going on? How can I help you? And I always tell my students every day, I am for you, not against you. I am for you, not against you. I want that on their head, because I don't want them to think, oh, she's just assigning us stuff. And it's not about that, okay? They have to see the value of okay, if I come to Spanish class, you're telling me I don't have to do anything after school? I just have to like be in class and participate and that's it? Okay, I'm gonna make sure my time is accounted for while I'm in Spanish class. So therefore they come. Go ahead.
I want to add, because you mentioned selling yourself in a way to your students. And I did that specifically yesterday. Like I send them a daily email of encouragement and goals every day. But yesterday I reminded them, like, remember, COVID-19, it will go away. Graduation will happen, however it will happen. And you are lucky right now. You have a really supportive teacher. So message me, call me, text me. I make a joke, send me a, airmail bird, like just talk to me and I'll be here for you. And I got there were students who were missing the entire quarter so far who started working like so hard yesterday. I was really surprised at that.
Yeah, so sometimes those messages do make a big difference for those students, and they will start reaching out because sometimes, I don't like to hear my students talk badly about other teachers. I tell them, all the teachers in the school are my family, but sometimes they would say, oh, such person doesn't really care. And I'm just like, oh, es mi familia. Okay, you can talk bad about my family, but I do want to know about how I am doing as a teacher. So it is important to build those bridges so those students can come towards you. And so that those students feel free, feel that support, to reach you and to know that you're there to help them and that you want them to pass, but they have to work for it. We're also not going to give them away the grades like that. So at the end of the day, I would say the biggest thing to keep in mind, and I said it at the beginning, is to not take it personal, because the fact that maybe all of your students are not showing their faces, they're not turning on their camera, that has nothing to do with you as a teacher. Okay, so I just want to let you know that. And then the second thing that I want to let you know is that there is one student. I was telling Rebecca, I have 100% participation in 2 classes. There is one class where I don't have that because I have one student who doesn't show up, and I have reached out to mom, and I have, talked to admins, and I have done everything I needed to do, send her messages on email, on the platform. This child doesn't care about my class. And sometimes you're going to have students like that. And I'm going to continue to knock on that door, because, I have to CYB, cover my butt, right? Cover your butt. So I have to document all of that and everything. I'm not going to take it personal. Maybe this child had a negative experience in her previous Spanish class, or maybe her mind is just not there in world languages right now. I do not know. She hasn't even Go ahead.
I want to add, because I was homeschooled in high school, and for me, I ate it up. I loved it. I finished my work. I turned everything in. I had my chart, but my sister was very creative, and she struggled, and it didn't matter what content area the class was. She wasn't happy. She needed socialization. So there are so many reasons why that one student or those 10 students aren't coming to your class, depending on the school that you're at.
Absolutely. So you don't have to carry that weight like that, oh, it's all of me, it's because of me. I hope none of you guys who are, connecting with us tonight feel that. And if you feel that, please do this. Throw it somewhere else, because it's not you. It really is not you. If you're watching this, or whether it's now or later, you are taking the time to, get strategies or just talk out whatever is happening in your classroom. You're doing the best you can for your students already, because you're spending time at 6 o'clock in the afternoon or whatever time it is, and at your place to get more knowledge, to get more strategies. You are an amazing teacher, and you need to believe that, because you truly, truly are. And our students, sometimes they're not going to value certain things at certain stages in their lives. We can encourage them, we can motivate them, and yes, we will reach most of them. There might be those that, might kind of like get away. That doesn't mean we're going to stop fighting for them at all. But, like I said, this one student, I haven't been able to reach her, and I don't know, like she just doesn't, she has a 0 in my class, you guys. Like she has turned in 0 assignments. And I call home, and the mom was just like, oh, thank you so much for letting me know. Yes, she works. I told her if she can keep up with her job, she shouldn't have a job. And that was that. And I was just like, okay, if you call me and you tell me my child hasn't been to class in 3 weeks, I don't know what I don't know. My child probably would not be alive right now. But, that's a different story.
And you want to remember, too, that parents absolutely know their students. I have had several parents this week tell me, I know my child. He is just lazy. I know my child. I don't know what's going on with her, ma'am, but please just document. Let me know. Keep me updated if she has to learn the hard way. And in that parent's way, they're showing them love because they want this almost adult to realize you are responsible. So you never know. Again, you never know what the lesson is at hand for that student in front of you.
Absolutely. So again, we want to open it if you have any questions. I know we have received some questions already. And we kind of have answered all of those. We were asked if we were doing the check-ins in the target language. We said yes. The first time we did the check-ins, I gave the instructions in English the first time. I did every time a check-in is new, I give the instructions in English. And then, I just they know, and then the next time I do the instructions in Spanish, but they already kind of know the motions of that. We talked about what to do if you do not know their names. And we talked about how to remain firm and with the students who do not stay in the virtual class. And again, remember that if they don't stay, just like Rebecca mentioned, and I know Meredith White was doing a presentation earlier when she shared her amazing idea that on her slides, she has the teacher is doing blah, 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 and the students are doing blah, 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 blah. And she created that because of the fact that students were logging on and off. And they're not logging on and off because they don't want to be in class necessarily. Many times, like Rebecca said earlier, it's the network, because the Wi-Fi buses from the school are not, it's not enough for them to be connected 100% or the class, or whatever reason. Maybe it's their phone, maybe it's the fact that they have to take care of their siblings, or something happened and the siblings are fighting and they had to step out or whatever. So they log off and then they come back on. And with those slides that Meredith was talking about, where she has what the teacher's doing and what the student's doing, when that student logs back in, that student feels like, oh, okay, I missed it, but I know what we're doing. So it gives that student that sense of security, like, this is what I'm doing. So I thought that was a great strategy that she shared. And she shared some of those templates, and I'm going to see if I can find them so I can share them with you, because, she shares all her stuff for free. She's amazing. So Rebecca, do you want to kind of close it out with any last minute comments, or, what do you want to tell to our viewers tonight about?
Sure. Yeah. So my number one thing that I want to add with engagement, that engagement is bonding. Okay. So even if their cameras are off, if you're finding some way to bond, I still do storytelling with virtual teaching. And my best storytelling lesson was a PowerPoint, no Nearpods, no Pear Decks, just them reacting in Microsoft Teams. Give me a thumbs up if you like what so-and-so suggested for our story. And again, I'm Spanish 1, so I'm in and out of English and Spanish as we learn how to tell a story and the rituals that go with it. But that lesson was phenomenal. I rewatch the footage when I get discouraged, because I'm like, no, I really can do this. Just me, myself is enough. If I can't handle the tech tools today, that was the day I was trying to do a Meredith White tech tool and it wasn't working out. And I was like, it's okay. I am enough. And then I powered through it, and it turned out to be a great lesson. So just remember that you are enough, and keep bonding with your students, and things will get better. They will.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. And I also remember, actually, you just brought it to my mind again. We talked about this also. I had told my students that, at the beginning of on week 2, I told them, guys, we are on a long distance relationship. So what happens with long distance relationships? And I had this conversation with them in English, 100%, and I said, what happens with long distance relationships? Sometimes, what? Maybe you want to end the class for 5 minutes at the end of class and just talk it out in English. That's their first language. That's how they're going to connect the strongest and talk about anything they want to talk about. So that day I told them, what happens in long distance relationships? Can a long distance relationship work? And then, you get some feedback. Yes, no, they're all these kinds of things. And then I said, yeah, they can work. Or how do we make them work? Because, we are on one right now. Uh, so we talked about connection, we talked about communication, all those things. Even though they're young, they know about this kind of stuff. I mean, it's kind of funny that they know about this kind of stuff, but they do. So we talked about how communication was key right now, and just kind of like emphasize that point. And yes, and like Rebecca said, bonding, like when you are in a long distance relationship, you have to create that feeling of closeness somehow. So there are ways to do that with your students, and maybe that's through, like Rebecca said, sharing a good story that is comprehensible with your students, having them react and be part of that story. Or maybe you are doing special person interviews, which I love those, where you ask students questions about their everyday life, or you're asking them about their weekend, what they're doing on the weekend and whatnot. You're laughing with them, you're doing a brain break with them, whatever.
And don't forget about hallway chats. In the physical building, it's easy to grab a student, check in with them, whether English or Spanish, and just see what's going on. So as we're waiting for students to come in, one day the girls and I, we compared our coffees and we talked about the different flavors and do you like this and can you function without coffee? And it's all in English, but remember, they don't have their friends right now. It's just them and their siblings who may be really young or a lot older than them. So simple things like that. And sometimes the girls are like, oh, Miss Hine, you are glowing today. I'm like, girl, you too. And then the boys, like I noticed their haircuts. Or one time I had a student who he makes dragons and he's like, Miss Hine, I want to show this to you. And I'm like, oh my God, that's so cool. And we talked about the colors in Spanish. So whatever they give you, go with it.
Absolutely. And that reminds me, this Tuesday we were doing the whole check-in where it was like what drains you and what fills you up. One of my students said, what fills me up, my pet gecko. And I said, can we see it? Can we see the gecko? So she went and got the gecko, and we had I spotlighted her video, and she was showing her gecko, and she told us, I asked her, how old, this I did do in Spanish. I said, what's his name? How old is him? How long have you had him? Like questions like that. And yeah, so it was so much fun. We saw the little gecko. It was so cute. Like I almost cried. I was like, oh my God, I feel so connected. So I don't know if they feel connected, but it was something different. And those opportunities, like they can't bring their pets to class. And even though they're high schoolers, we want to get to know their pets. So, and they want to show their pets most of the time. So thank you so much, Rebecca, for being here with us tonight. And, even though I know you have your little one, so thank the little one for allowing us to have you here.
Oh, he ate so much candy. He's happy. I was handing him candy under the desk. He's all right. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, but I'm so glad you were able to make it. So I hope that you guys, got some insight as to what our realities are like in the classroom. And I hope that you guys use some of the strategies we gave you. Like I would suggest you start with a cold calling. And if you are already cold calling, cold call more often and make sure that if they don't respond, you call home. And just make sure the kids know this. So thank you so much. We have some comments. So Patrice is saying, thank you so much for your knowledge and time. Great strategies idea. Can't wait to do the SEL check-ins at the start of my classes. Best of luck as everyone continues our 2020 teaching adventure. Yes, indeed, Patrice. Heidi's saying they love sharing their pets. My dog comes to class with me. Yes, everyone knows my pet Patron as well. So even though Patron likes to spend time with my son, he prefers my son over me any day. So yeah, this was great. Thank you. So helpful. Gracias por todo. Do daily check-in work as warm-up activities? Yes, I don't do warm-up activities anymore. I just do my check-ins, and then I go straight into special person interview, brain break, and straight into content. So I kind of section my class like that, and that way, just flies by. Oh my God, it's time to go. So so grateful for all the comments. Thank you guys so much for joining us and staying until the end. We absolutely love being here and sharing what's really happening with us and how we can help you. So let us know if there's a topic you want to see later in the future. Next week, we will have Senora Chase, who will be with us in this community. So make sure to tune in. Make sure to be on the lookout for the flyer about the time and the topics. And then if you haven't already registered for the World Language Teacher Summit, World Language Teacher Summit 2020 by Speaking Latino. The company is Speaking Latino and Jared Romy. Please make sure you're registered for that. It's going to be free. It's going to be from October 5th through October 12th. And it is not live, so you can catch it at any time of the day for a whole week free. If you haven't registered for that, make sure you check on my feed in this group, and there is a registration link in there somewhere. So I am loving all the comments. I am so glad. I am so tired, guys, but listening and reading to your comments are, like really, like the fact that, you feel like this was useful just brightens up my day. So thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rebecca. And we'll see you guys later. Take care.